Suicide is a tragic and heartbreaking event that affects many people today. In this episode, we will discuss the surprising numbers between relapse and suicides and explore its complexities. Any death is heartbreaking. It doesn't matter if it's a suicide or an overdose or old age. We still grieve for that loss of life. When it comes to people who suffer with mental health issues and addiction, it just feels like we get brushed aside to some point. The feeling is, well, they were an addict or, something of that nature. For a long time, depression was a stigma, and people were ashamed of even speaking the words. I feel that way about myself sometimes, and it can be very hard to open up about it. In fact, I will open up about my addiction easier than I will about my mental health. And that's something I have to work on myself. But now, today, that stigma has moved into the realm of addiction and relapse. It's almost like a permanent scar that everyone sees and judges us over. We can't change the past. And most of the folks that judge us don't affect us anyway. The ones that hurt are the people we love and are trying so hard for. But we are not alone. This has been an issue for a long, long time. On IMBD's website, if you don't know what IMBD, it's a website that lists celebrities and their shows, movies, etc. They list 196 celebrities that have committed suicide. And I'm going to talk just about a few of those that resemble what we're going through. Then afterward, we're going to talk about some alarming numbers and some action steps. Just a side note here, I'm not going to mention the manner of death other than suicide because I don't feel it's appropriate. The first one I'm going to list here is Clara Blandick. And she was best known for playing Auntie M on The Wizard of Oz. She died April 15th, 1962, age 85, died by suicide. She was suffering from severe arthritis and was losing her eyesight. Her suicide note said, now, let me break up here. Okay, so when it comes to the suicide notes, I think this is a very important thing to include in what I'm talking about here, because this gives us their mindset. This lets us know and should throw up a red flag to us when we're feeling these emotions, when we're feeling the way these people felt, that so that we can reach out for help, in some form. Her suicide note said, "I am now about to make the great adventure. I cannot endure this agonizing pain any longer. It is all over my body. Neither can I face the impending blindness. I pray the Lord my soul to take." Amen. She was older, it said she was 85, a senior citizen. And what a lot of people know is that suicides among senior citizens is rising in the United States. And that's the reason why I mentioned her, is to bring awareness to that issue. So make sure you're checking on your older folks. The next one, most people have heard of. Anthony Bourdain died June 8th, 2018, age 61, by suicide. Was a celebrity chef, travel show host, New York Times bestselling author, won 8 Emmy Awards, a Peabody Award, and a Webby for Best Blog. He battled drug addiction in the past and had openly discussed his struggles with depression. His mother said, "He is absolutely the last person in the world I would have ever dreamed would do something like this. He had everything." Just like us, he battled drug addiction and depression, and he had it all. He had money. He had a great career. He got to travel the world, yet he still succumbed to suicide. That should be an eye-opener for us. That should be a big eye-opener. Now, this next one, I just found out while doing my research. She was a celebrated best-selling author, and her name was Iris Chang. Died November 9th, 2004, age 36, by suicide. was an author and journalist best known for her New York Times best-selling book, The Rape of Nanking. She had a history of bipolar disorder and clinical depression. Her suicide note said, "I am doing this because I am too weak to withstand the years of pain and agony ahead. Each breath is becoming more difficult for me to take. Please forgive me. Forgive me, because I cannot forgive myself." This lady was overwhelmed by the thoughts of living with her disorder. And I can relate to that. I know how it feels, and I bet you can too. But praise God, none of my suicide attempts were successful, because look at what I would have missed out on. The next one I want to mention, this one shows the family trait. And, this is something that we really need to pay attention to, something that is a red flag for our history. Margot Hemingway, born in Portland, Oregon. She grew up on a farm in Ketchum, Idaho. But Dad was Jack Hemingway, son of the Nobel Prize-winning author Ernest Hemingway. And with that heritage, fame was almost foreordained. She died July 1st, 1996, age 42, by suicide. Was an actress and model, best known for her starring in the movie Lipstick, which also starred her sister Marielle. Now listen to this part. She was the 5th person in her family to commit suicide. This included her grandfather, Pulitzer and Nobel Prize-winning author Ernest Hemingway, great-grandfather, great-aunt, and great-uncle. She had a history of alcohol and drug abuse, bulimia, and depression. She had attempted suicide at least once before. This right here, this goes to show that if a history of addiction and or depression run in the family, and especially suicides, please take this very seriously. Now, you'll remember this next one real well because this just happened last year. Naomi Judd died April 30th, 2022, age 76, by suicide. Was one half of the country music duo The Judds with her daughter Wynonna. Was a 5-time Grammy Award winner. Was also the mother of actress Ashley Judd. Died one day before she was to be inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame. She discussed her depression in the book River of Time, My Descent into Depression, and How I Emerged with Hope. In 2017 Today Show interview, she said, "I didn't get off my couch for 2 years. I was so depressed that I couldn't move. My husband and my girlfriends and Ashley would come over, and I would just go upstairs and lock the door to my bedroom. You become immobilized." Her daughters released a joint statement after the death that said, "Today, we sisters experienced a tragedy. We lost our beautiful mother to the disease, mental illness. We are in unknown territory." Naomi wrote a book on how she overcome depression. And then it comes back and she spirals. This is a disease, just like addiction is. My maternal grandfather and 2 of his children were alcoholics. And I thought I was safe because Mom wasn't an alcoholic. And I was wrong on that one. And I didn't know about this one either. This one is Mindy McCready. Died February 17th, 2013, age 37, by suicide. Was an American country music singer, best known for her debut album, 10,000 Angels, which was certified double platinum. Also for the album If I Don't Stay the Night, which was certified gold. She had attempted suicide at least 3 times before. She struggled with legal problems and drug addiction and appeared on the reality TV show Celebrity Rehab with Dr. Drew. She was also despondent over the death of her boyfriend, who committed suicide 1 month earlier. Here she is fighting addiction, mental health issues, and her boyfriend passes away by suicide for the exact same reasons. And that's a really eye-opening, tragic event right there. I think everyone will know this last one. Robin Williams died August 11th, 2014, age 63, by suicide. Was an Oscar winner and four-time Oscar nominee. Was also a philanthropist who co-founded the nonprofit organization Comic Relief USA, which has raised over $70 million to benefit the homeless. He battled alcohol and drug addiction as well as clinical depression for much of his life. He had Lewy body dementia at the time of his death. I can relate to this one. When I was younger, I was always the funny one. The one trying to make everyone smile, lifting people up when they were down. Then I would come home and attempt suicide. I was so broken inside, I didn't want to go on. I didn't ask for help, didn't want help. I thought everything was my fault. I thought I was just a horrible person. I didn't know it was called depression or clinical depression and that it was a disease. I didn't know it meant that the chemicals in my brain weren't balanced. And I also didn't know that a low vitamin D count can cause depression as well. Did not know that one until here recently. Now, listen to these numbers right here. This is the alarming numbers that I was telling you about in the beginning. This comes from an article by Southern California Recovery Center. And I loved this article because they put all of these numbers into where you can understand them really easily. You know, I did all of my research and read all of the statistics from the National Institute of Drug Abuse, the National Institute for Health Services, or Health and Human Services, the National Institute for for Statistics, you know, and I was doing all this research and I was having a really hard time putting them into relative terms to better understand them. But this article did it great, and I'm going to put a link in the description for this article so that you can check this article out and see all the numbers for yourself, and so that way you check out all the resources that they provide. The article starts as one of the top leading causes of death in the United States, particularly among young people. Suicide can be considered one of the country's most significant health epidemics. You hear that? Epidemics. It is the 10th leading cause of death among all groups in the United States, and is the second leading cause of death among people aged 10 to 34. In 2016, almost 45,000 Americans died of suicide, with approximately one suicide every 12 minutes, and 1.3 million American adults attempted suicide that year. Those with alcohol dependence are 10 times more likely. Did you hear that? Those with alcohol dependence are 10 times more likely than the general population to commit suicide. And those who use drugs are 14 times more likely to do so. Okay, just real quick. Let me put these numbers to you here. These are from the National Institute on Drug Abuse from August 21 to August 22. So August 2021 to August 2022, a full year. Almost 108,000 people died from an overdose. That's 295 people a day, or 12 people every hour. In 2015, that number was around 48,000, making it over a 100% increase in overdose deaths in just 7 years. That's a staggering figure. The article goes on to say, according to multiple studies, over 50% of suicides are associated with dependence on drug and alcohol, and at least 25% of people with alcohol or drug addiction commit suicide. Additionally, more than 70% of adolescent suicides are associated with drug and alcohol use and dependence. Let me stop right there for a minute. Did you hear those numbers? Over 50% of suicides are associated with alcohol and drug use. The article goes on to say the connection between substance abuse and suicide. In 2014, about 60% of people who committed suicide suffered from a mood disorder, including major depression, bipolar disorder, and dyspnea. All right, so if you don't know what dyspnea is, I didn't know what it was either, and so I had to look it up. Dyspnea is a milder but long-lasting form of depression. It is also called persistent depressive disorder. The article goes on to say many young people who commit suicide are both depressed and suffer from a substance abuse disorder. A 2018 survey revealed that substance abuse was more common for adolescents and adults who suffered from mental health issues than those who did not. Many people who experienced mood disorders will seek out drugs and alcohol to self-medicate and alleviate negative feelings. Then in the article, they go on to talk about the different types of disorders and the risk factors for each. But here, I just wanted to share what they said about the most common risk factors. So these risk factors are common among all the disorders and not specific to just one. So substance abuse and suicide share many common risk factors. Again, it is crucial to recognize that no one risk factor is the sole cause of suicide or substance abuse. A combination of multiple risk factors that can determine whether someone might develop a substance use disorder or thoughts of suicide. For mental health, it's depression, anxiety disorders, and aggressive behavior. Environmental, the examples are drug for substance abuse, lethal means for suicide, prolonged stress, financial stress, exposure to drug use, drugs for substance abuse, or exposure to things to commit suicide with. So historical factors are previous use, substance abuse, or attempt suicide, family history of substance abuse or suicide, childhood abuse or trauma. Exposure to multiple risk factors, including depression and substance abuse, does not determine with certainty that someone will consider suicide. However, if someone does express thoughts of suicide, they are always to be taken seriously. If someone has attempted suicide in the past, they are at a very high risk for doing so again when triggered. So while a previous suicide attempt does not guarantee someone will attempt suicide in the future, it is vital to treat the individual and ensure their safety. Those are just some of the common risk factors. But with that, we need to know the warning signs for ourselves who personally suffer and for those that we love, that we can recognize that behavior in them and help them through. They say of the warning signs, while discussing suicidal thoughts is an obvious warning sign of potential suicide, it is not the only one. There are many warning signs to look out for when determining if someone is contemplating suicide. Warning signs include things someone might talk about, behavioral changes or changes in their mood, killing themselves, feeling of hopelessness, their life having no meaning, being a burden, feeling trapped, extreme pain. And my addition here for the extreme pain is it can be physical or emotional. Let's see here. Someone might be at risk for suicide if they display the following behavioral changes: increased use of drugs and alcohol, searching online for ways to commit suicide, ending engagement in activities they once enjoyed, isolation from friends and family, sleeping more or less than normal, visiting or calling people to say goodbye to them, giving away possessions that are important to them, unusually aggressive, abnormal fatigue. Now, remember, these are not the only signs. I remember Anthony Bourdain's and Robin Williams' death very well. And all of their coworkers and family said they didn't see any changes whatsoever. So, that's something to keep in mind. The article goes on to say someone may be at risk for suicide if they display one or more of the following moods: depression, anxiety, loss of interest, irritability, shame and guilt, anger and agitation, relief or sudden improvement. Okay, I want to say something here. How many of you in recovery felt this way when in a rehab center or trying to rebuild your life after you got clean and sober. I know I felt all of them, and it was crushing. And that's why a treatment plan from a professional is literally a lifesaver. The article goes on to say if someone is displaying these warning signs, it is essential to take them seriously, even if they are not verbally expressing thoughts of suicide. A stressful event may trigger the individual and create a situation in which suicide can occur. They go on to discuss prevention and recovery and treatment, and I'm just summarizing the most important parts here. They say evidence shows that they are talking about suicide providing necessary support and reducing access to self-harm, including weapons and dangerous chemicals and substances, and a few actions that may help save a loved one's life. Above all, contacting a mental health professional is the best way to get help for a loved one struggling with substance use disorder and thoughts of suicide. Many treatment centers can focus on substance abuse disorders in addition to mental health issues. These treatment centers provide therapies conducted by mental health professionals that aid in recovery from drugs and alcohol while also treating depression and thoughts of suicide. Continued aftercare is another important tool that can reduce the chances of relapse and help someone to maintain healthy thoughts. And that's the end of the article. And, like I said before, I'm going to put a link to this article into the description, and you can read it, check it out in all the resources that they provide. But this is an area where you need a professional. And I have heard this argument before. I don't want to take some pill to make me feel better. Well, here's my rebuttal to that. We self-medicated to feel better. Mine was alcohol, and it destroyed my life. I'm willing to take an antidepressant, one little pill a day, to feel better for the rest of my life and to be able to build the type of life I want with my family. That's a fair trade-off. Suicide is a tragic and heartbreaking event, and that affects so many people, not just the person that passed away, but it affects their family, their friends, and God help us if they have children. That affects their children for the rest of their lives. Now, for the action steps, reach out to someone who may be struggling with thoughts of suicide. Or if you're struggling with thoughts of suicide, reach out, seek help and support from a professional counselor or support group. Remember, there is hope. If you or someone you know is in immediate danger, please call emergency services or at least the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. And that phone number is 800-273-TALK, 8255.
Thank you for being here today. Join us next time as we continue on our journey of hope and healing.